Hollywood has convinced us that the Wild West began and ended with a handful of dusty titles. The same names get recycled until they feel less like legends and more like reruns. But what if I told you that some of the most daring, stylish, and unforgettable westerns are the ones you've never even heard of? The forgotten gems, the box office flops that aged like fine whiskey. Ready to dig into the ones that slipped right past you? Beyond the Law, 1968. This isn't your standard spaghetti western. It's a sly caper where charm collides with chaos. Lee Van Cleef, usually cast as the menace in black, flips expectations by playing Cudlip, a drifter with a knack for silver heists. He doesn't outdraw rivals, he outsmarts them, running scams with his two bumbling sidekicks. For once, a western isn't just about speed at the draw. It's about how much nerve you have when the tables turn. But things unravel fast when a ruthless gang sets their sights on the same silver shipment. Gordon Mitchell, looming like a silent storm, plays the kind of foe who doesn't need dialogue to radiate intimidation. The film thrives on that contrast, Van Cleef's sly grin against Mitchell's cold stare. The action builds with double crosses, desperate bluffs, and clever reversals that feel almost modern. What makes Beyond the Law stand out is how it treats morality as a moving target. Cudlip isn't noble, but he isn't rotten either. He's just hustling to survive in a world where survival is a gamble. For audiences in the late 60s, that was a refreshing twist, and it still works today. Watching Van Cleef bend Western tropes to his advantage is pure joy, and the ending seals the deal with a reward that feels both earned and surprising. The Big Country, 1958. Think of this as the anti-gunslinging epic. Gregory Peck plays James McKay, a former sea captain who sails into landlocked ranching country to marry into a wealthy family. Instead of reaching for a six-shooter, he leans on sheer willpower, which proves far more effective than bullets. Peck embodies dignity and quiet strength, resisting the macho posturing that defined most Western heroes of the time. His restraint infuriates his rivals and, honestly, fascinates us as viewers. Surrounding him is a powerhouse cast: Charlton Heston, Burl Ives, Chuck Connors, each man capable of carrying his own picture. Together, they turn what could have been a simple land feud into an operatic clash of pride, loyalty, and ambition. The wide-open landscapes echo the vast emotional battles being fought, every horizon a reminder of the stubborn egos colliding under the sun. Behind the scenes, the production was nearly as stormy as the story itself. Gene Simmons, playing McKay's fiancée, endured endless rewrites and confessed it was one of the toughest shoots of her career. Yet that tension bleeds into the film, giving her performance an edge of frustration and realism. Even President Eisenhower was obsessed, screening the film 4 times in the White House and calling it the best movie ever made. Not everyone agreed at the time, but decades later, The Big Country feels prophetic. It predicted that the most memorable westerns wouldn't be about who drew first, but who had the strength to stand firm when everyone else was playing tough guy. Hour of the Gun, 1967. Everyone knows the OK Corral showdown. Most films drag it out, turn it into a finale. Hour of the Gun does the opposite. It blows through the gunfight in the first act, then asks the more intriguing question, what happens afterward? James Garner as Wyatt Earp and Jason Robards as Doc Holliday anchor a story less about shootouts and more about fallout, vendettas, and the moral toll of carrying justice on your shoulders. Director John Sturges, who had already given us The Magnificent Seven, took a bold risk. He stripped away the glamour, showing Earp as less of a hero and more of a man obsessed. Robert Ryan's steely Ike Clanton becomes a foil not just in action, but in ideology. What do you do when vengeance starts to look more like corruption? The answer plays out in tense courtroom scenes, icy standoffs, and a growing sense of unease. Audiences in the 60s didn't bite. By then, westerns were fading from fashion, and the lack of strong female roles didn't help its box office chances. Critics dismissed it, but time has been kind. Today, Hour of the Gun feels sharper than ever, a stripped-down character study disguised as a genre film. The score, moody and unforgettable, lingers in your head long after the credits roll. If the golden era love to mythologize the West, this film was one of the first to start dismantling that myth. It's less about the glory of Gunsmoke and more about the scars it leaves behind. The Nevadan, 1950. Randolph Scott built a career on playing the kind of cowboy who could win a standoff with a raised eyebrow. The Nevadan is no exception, but this time he brings mystery into the saddle. Scott's character, Andrew Barkley, strolls into town looking like an outsider, but quickly proves he can outmaneuver seasoned gunmen, leaving both allies and outlaws puzzled. Who is this guy, and why is he so interested in a stash of stolen gold? The setup is classic Western fare: robbers, hidden loot, desert chases, and dangerous alliances. But director Gordon Douglas layers in intrigue, turning Barkley's every move into a question mark. Even the outlaw Tanner, the man sitting on the gold, can't figure out whether to trust him or take him out of the picture. The cat-and-mouse game keeps you guessing until the final act. What elevates the Nevadan is its pacing. It avoids the drag that slowed down many early 50s westerns, moving briskly from one twist to the next. And Lone Pine's rugged backdrop does half the work, offering sweeping vistas that look tailor-made for Scott's stoic heroics. It's not his most famous role, but his charisma glues the whole thing together. Sometimes, a Western doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. It just needs to write it smoothly and with confidence. The Nevadan is exactly that, a sturdy, suspenseful ride that proves Scott didn't need gimmicks to command the screen. 40 Guns, 1957. If Westerns were a boys' club, Samuel Fuller kicked the doors open with 40 Guns. This is a film that bursts with style before a single line of dialogue is spoken. Barbara Stanwyck dominates as Jessica Drummond, a landowner so powerful she commands an army of 40 hired riders. She doesn't just run the range, she bends it to her will, making every cowboy cliché before her look quaint by comparison. Fuller shot the film in CinemaScope, and you can feel him flexing at every chance. Sweeping shots of the Arizona plains clash with daring close-ups, some experimental enough to feel decades ahead of their time. Fuller wanted to prove widescreen wasn't just for epics, it was for art, and 40 Guns makes his case loudly. Europe adored it, calling it bold and avant-garde. American audiences, not so much. They weren't ready for a Western that looked like a fever dream and carried a female lead who didn't need saving. Stanwyck, already a legend, gives one of her fiercest performances here. She's magnetic, commanding, and layered, walking the line between ruthless authority and vulnerable humanity. Opposite her, Barry Sullivan plays the lawman who arrives to arrest one of her men, but finds himself caught in her orbit. Their push and pull anchors the film with a tension that's as much emotional as it is physical. Is it messy? Yes. Is it over the top? Absolutely. But that's the Fuller way: big, brash, and unforgettable. 40 Guns may split opinions, but love it or hate it, you'll never forget it. Chino, 1973. Charles Bronson wasn't just an action icon. He had a gift for subtlety that often went overlooked. Chino, also called the Valdez Horses, is proof. Instead of blasting his way through the frontier, Bronson plays a quiet horse trainer of mixed heritage who takes in an orphan boy. What starts as a mentor story turns into something much richer, a meditation on identity, belonging, and love in a world that doesn't welcome outsiders. Bronson carries the role with his trademark stoicism, but beneath that granite stare lies real tenderness. His bond with the boy is believable, heartfelt, and never slips into sentimentality. That alone would have made the film memorable. But then comes Jill Ireland. Playing Catherine, the daughter of a wealthy landowner, she's instantly drawn to Chino. Their forbidden romance becomes the heart of the story, a relationship loaded with stolen glances, restrained words, and undeniable chemistry. No surprise there, Bronson and Ireland were married in real life, and their connection practically ignites the screen. Director John Sturges, in his final Western, deliberately tones down the shootouts and spectacle. Instead, he crafts a drama where tension comes, not from gunfire, but from the weight of prejudice, family pressure, and the quiet resilience of two people trying to carve out a place for themselves. It didn't dominate the box office, but that might be why Chino feels so timeless now. It's understated, thoughtful, and proof that Bronson could bring just as much power in silence as he did in action. The Tall, T. 1957. Sometimes the simplest stories hit the hardest. The Tall T., directed by Bud Boeticher and based on an Elmore Leonard story, is about as stripped down as a Western can get, but it's all the better for it. Randolph Scott plays Brennan, a good-natured cowboy whose trip to town takes a dark turn when bandits hijack the stagecoach he's riding. Suddenly, a sunny ride becomes a grim test of survival. The villains, led by Richard Boone's cool and calculating usher, aren't overblown caricatures. They're unnervingly human, which makes their cruelty sting. Brennan's survival isn't about outgunning them. It's about outthinking them, staying calm, and holding on to decency when everything around him is crumbling. That's what makes this film different. It doesn't romanticize the struggle. It strips the genre down to human nature under pressure. What elevates The Tall T further is its script. Every line serves a purpose. Every pause tightens the noose. It's lean storytelling, no filler, no grand speeches, just sharp exchanges that build character and tension in equal measure. Martin Scorsese has often praised it, calling it one of the purest westerns ever put to film. At only 78 minutes, it's a masterclass in efficiency. No wasted time, no wasted shots, just raw suspense, punctuated by Scott's steady presence and Boone's chilling menace. The Tall T may not have the epic sweep of The Searchers or the polish of High Noon, but what it does have is grit, honesty, and an intensity that sticks with you. The Gunfighter, 1950. Gregory Peck was born for roles that carried dignity, and The Gunfighter may be the sharpest example. Here, he plays Jimmy Ringo, a weary gunslinger who spent his life trying to outrun his own reputation. Ringo's problem? Every young hotshot wants to take him down to prove themselves. And when a rash challenger forces Ringo to defend himself, he becomes the hunted, trapped by the very myth that made him famous. Unlike many westerns of its time, this one is quieter, more claustrophobic. Much of the story unfolds in a saloon, where Ringo waits, reflects, and wrestles with the choices that brought him there. Peck brings layers to the role, tired but proud, hardened but vulnerable. He isn't invincible. He's human, flawed, and painfully aware that time is running out. Behind the camera, director Henry King keeps the tension tight, making the walls of the town feel like they're closing in. The supporting cast adds bite, but this is Peck's show, through and through. He even fought studio brass to keep his authentic mustache, which the EC production head hated so much he blamed it for the film's underperformance. Peck later called it one of his personal favorites, proving his instincts were dead right. Critics and audiences didn't fully appreciate The Gunfighter in 1950, but its reputation has only grown. Today, it feels like one of the earliest revisionist westerns, daring to show the West not as glamorous, but as a trap for men who can't escape their own shadows. Man of the West, 1958. Gary Cooper was already a legend when Man of the West arrived, but here he showed something new: fragility wrapped inside steel. Cooper plays Link Jones, a man trying to start fresh when his past comes back with a vengeance. His old outlaw gang reappears, forcing him into a brutal tug-of-war between who he was and who he wants to be. Director Anthony Mann, known for pushing the Western into darker psychological territory, doesn't sugarcoat anything. The landscapes are vast, but they're not liberating, they're isolating, trapping Link between duty and temptation. The supporting cast adds firepower, especially Lee J. Cobb as the gang leader, radiating menace with every sneer. The film's intensity even caught the attention of a young Jean-Luc Godard, who, still a critic at the time, declared Man of the West the best film of 1958. That endorsement gave it a second life, pulling it out of obscurity and forcing audiences to reevaluate it as a masterpiece of the genre. What makes it endure is its emotional complexity. This isn't just a shootout tale. It's about redemption, shame, and the weight of old sins that never die quietly. Cooper, even late in his career, moves with the conviction of a man who knows the cost of every choice he's ever made. Man of the West isn't always easy viewing, but it's unforgettable. It's the kind of film that digs under your skin and leaves you wondering what you'd do if your past came knocking. Support your local sheriff. 1969. By the late 60s, the Western genre was gasping for fresh air. Then came Support Your Local Sheriff, which decided the best way forward was to laugh at the whole thing. James Garner plays Jason McCullough, a drifter who takes the thankless job of sheriff in a chaotic gold rush town. His first task? Tossing Bruce Dern's hapless outlaw into a jail cell held together with hope and splinters. Unlike the somber epics of the decade, this film thrives on wit. Rapid-fire quips, slapstick comedy, and absurd situations pile up, each one poking fun at the clichés of the Western while still respecting them. Garner's charm carries the film effortlessly, blending cool authority with sly humor. He doesn't posture, he smirks his way through danger, and it's a joy to watch. The supporting cast is equally golden. Walter Brennan, as the grumpy family patriarch, delivers cranky brilliance, while Harry Morgan nearly steals the show as the perpetually flustered mayor. Their chemistry with Garner keeps the comedy sharp, without ever tipping into parody. What makes Support Your Local Sheriff even more remarkable is its behind-the-scenes story. It was made largely as a project to keep actors, writers, and crew working during a slump. Garner was the only star paid above scale, yet the film looks and feels richer than its budget suggests. For audiences tired of grim revisionist takes, this was a breath of fresh air. Lighthearted but clever, Support Your Local Sheriff proved that the Western could still surprise, not with grit, but with laughter. The Hired Hand, 1971. After the roaring counterculture success of Easy Rider, Peter Fonda could have chased more fame. Instead, he made The Hired Hand, a quiet, meditative Western that bent every rule of the genre. Fonda directs and stars as Harry, a drifter who returns home to reconnect with his estranged wife, played by Verna Bloom. But she's not interested in picking up where they left off. She hires him and his buddy as workers instead, forcing Harry to prove his worth the hard way. From the very first frame, this film declares itself different. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond fills it with hazy, sunlit imagery, turning the West into something dreamlike and mournful. The pacing is deliberately slow, almost hypnotic, more concerned with atmosphere than action. Gunfights, when they happen, feel stripped of glamour and heavy with consequence. Critics at the time didn't know what to make of it. Some dismissed it as dull, others praised its bravery. Today, it stands as one of the earliest revisionist westerns, paving the way for films that dared to strip away the myth and show the human cost underneath. Fonda's performance is understated but powerful, capturing a man haunted not by enemies but by regret. And the ending, quiet, devastating, lingers long after the credits fade. The Hired Hand isn't just a Western. It's a piece of folk art on film. The Great Silence, 1968. If Bleak had a capital city, The Great Silence would be its capital. Directed by Sergio Corbucci, this Italian Western takes everything audiences expected and flips it upside down. Jean-Louis Trintignant stars as Silence, a mute gunslinger who communicates only through presence, not words. His mission: protect the oppressed from a ruthless band of bounty hunters led by Klaus Kinski's chilling character, Loco. The film is set not in blazing deserts, but in snowbound mountains, where the white landscapes feel both beautiful and suffocating. The choice was radical, and it amplifies the mood: lonely, cold, unforgiving. Corbucci's direction strips away the romance of the West, leaving only survival, cruelty, and fleeting sparks of courage. Vanetta McGee, in her breakout role, brings incredible weight as Pauline, a widow seeking justice. She adds emotional depth, balancing Silence's stoicism with raw determination. Their bond is unusual for the genre, equal parts tragic and empowering. But it's the ending that cements The Great Silence as legendary. Without spoiling it, let's just say it left 20th Century Fox executives horrified. refusing to release it in the US at the time. European audiences, however, praised its audacity, calling it one of the boldest takes on the Western ever made. It may be too grim for some, but for others, The Great Silence is the ultimate reminder that the West wasn't all glory and victory. It was also cold, cruel, and unfair. Cemetery Without Crosses. 1969. Sometimes revenge stories burn hot. This one burns cold. Directed by and starring Robert Hossein, Cemetery Without Crosses is a French-Italian Western that feels stripped down to the bone. Hossein plays Manuel, a brooding outsider drawn back into a world of violence when his former lover Maria asks him for help. Maria, played by Michelle Mercier, delivers one of her finest performances, a portrait of grief, pride, and simmering fury. Unlike Sergio Leone's operatic style, Hossein goes minimalist. Long silences stretch out, punctuated by sudden bursts of action. The desert setting feels empty, like the world itself has already given up. Every shot is deliberate, every cut a reminder of how fragile hope really is. What makes the film special is its emotional weight. Mercier, often cast in glamorous roles, surprises with raw power here. She's not a damsel or a side note. She's the center, her pain driving the story. Her chemistry with Hossein creates a tension that feels tragic even before the ending arrives. The film is dedicated to Leone, and you can feel the influence, but it chooses a different path. Where Leone went for myth, Hossein goes for sorrow. The result is a Western that doesn't feel like a legend. It feels like a wound. Cemetery Without Crosses didn't make much noise on release, but its reputation has grown steadily. Today, it's seen as one of the most haunting European Westerns ever made. The Mercenary, 1968. If you want chaos, flair, and pure energy, look no further than Sergio Corbucci's The Mercenary. Franco Nero plays Sergei Kowalski, a Polish adventurer who stumbles into the Mexican Revolution. He teams up with Paco, a fiery peasant-turned-rebel, played by Tony Musante, and together they set off a chain of battles, betrayals, and bizarre schemes. But stealing the show is Jack Palance as Curly, one of the most flamboyantly sinister villains ever put to film. Every time he's on screen, you can't look away. Palance milks every sneer, every line, every gesture for maximum menace. What sets The Mercenary apart from other Zapata westerns of its time is its sheer unpredictability. One moment it's deadly serious, the next it's almost playful. There's even a sequence involving loaded dice and a lesson in cheating that feels more like dark comedy than traditional frontier drama. Corbucci keeps the energy high, balancing political themes with pure entertainment. The film doesn't shy away from the ugliness of revolution, but it never loses sight of spectacle. Either combined with Ennio Morricone's lively score, the result is a wild ride that feels alive in every frame. It might not have the reputation of Django or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but The Mercenary deserves a spot in the conversation. It's messy, vibrant, and endlessly watchable, a Western that thrives on its own unruly spirit. Track of the Cat. 1954. Forget the sunny frontier. Track of the Cat is a snowbound nightmare. Directed by William Wellman, this unusual Western swaps saloons and dusty trails for icy mountains and family tension. Robert Mitchum plays Kurt Bridges, part of a dysfunctional ranch family torn apart while hunting a panther that's been picking off their livestock. But the animal is only part of the threat. The real drama unfolds inside the house, where isolation, jealousy, and simmering grudges boil over. The snow traps them physically, but it also mirrors their emotional entrapment. With its claustrophobic setting and tense family dynamics, the film plays more like a psychological thriller than a traditional Western. Mitchum, known for his cool, brings a rugged edge here, battling both the wilderness and his own family's unraveling. The supporting cast adds richness, each sibling revealing cracks under pressure. The black and white CinemaScope cinematography is stunning, using bold contrasts to heighten the sense of cold, creeping dread. Audiences in the 50s didn't know what to do with it. They wanted wide-open heroics, not cabin fever and existential dread. But decades later, Track of the Cat stands out as one of the most daring experiments in the genre. It dares to suggest that the harshest wilderness isn't out there in the snow. It's right inside the human heart. So there you have it, 15 westerns that dared to ride their own trail, each one ignored, underrated, or forgotten in its day. Together, they prove that the genre is far richer than the same three classics we're always handed. Which of these do you think deserves a rewatch revolution? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep cuts. The West isn't dead, it's just waiting to be rediscovered.